Hi, Anthony. Welcome. So I'm just going to ask you a few questions about the work of that you created for JV2. So just to put it a little bit in context, since 2012, when we have established JV2, every year we've commissioned 2 new choreographers to create new work for JV2, with another piece by myself, which is usually based on a company repertoire. So this year we've commissioned 2 choreographers, Mafalda Deville and Anthony Matsena. Anthony have worked with JV2 in February, I believe, or January, February, and completed the piece just before the outbreak of COVID-19. So unfortunately, due to the lockdown and theater closure, the tour was cancelled. Towards the graduation of JV2 in July, we would like to give sort of platform to those works that created for JV2 this year, with the hope that we can still present them in the future. So Anthony, can you introduce yourself and the work that you created for JV2 this year?
Cool. Hey, I'm Anthony Matsena. I'm a co-artistic director of a company I run with my brother called Matsena Performance Theatre. I'm an associate artist at National Dance Company Wales and a performance associate artist at the Mesms, Fine Arts, as well as a Sadler Wales Young Associate Alumni. I came into JV2, I think it was January 20th, after Jasmin's invitation to come and create a work on these 60 powerful, beautiful women. The work was based around a kind of fight against injustices and brutality against specifically women. And a lot of the inspiration we were taking was to kind of create this hostile kind of mad anarchy world that we were drawing a lot of visual inspiration from what was going on in Hong Kong. It was really, really upsetting. And there were a lot of these strong themes which we're starting to also see happen in today's current state of affairs. But yes, we're kind of making work that was based on a lot of the things which were personal to a lot of the women in the work that I won't go into, but a lot of the other stories were also things that I've experienced with the figures and the women in my life. The work was really, really quite gutsy and really quite unapologetic. It was in your face, and it was really empowering because not only were we dealing with a topic that made a lot of us feel vulnerable, but in that vulnerability, we found a lot of strength in being able to speak openly through movement about the things that have happened and things that are still happening. We're also trying to offer not an answer to what was going on, but a few options to find some kind of healing in kind of the pain and the madness and chaos of the work and the kind of world we're in. Because the work is quite spread out at first, and then they kind of find each other and they realize, the fight we've been fighting, we think we're doing it individually, but everybody is. So why don't we fight together? And the work itself was called Eterna, the Latin and Italian word for eternal, everlasting, imperishable. And that was not only about the spirits in the room, but about the fight. We won't stop fighting until there's justice and fairness and equality in the world.
It's very, very powerful and extremely relevant piece, and created obviously in January and feel more relevant. I mean, the beginning beginning scene of the riots and the violence that happened through this kind of is so powerful to watch. So over the years, most of the choreographers that we commission were either company dancers or ex-company dancers who were interested in developing choreographic work. My work with the dancers always encourage creative input from them, and I invest in developing individual voices with the dancers that I work with. So it's natural that many develop into creating their own work, which I personally love to support. I have this passion of supporting young artists in whatever form they are. And it's the first time that this year that we commission an artist who didn't grow from the company. So I've seen Anthony work as a young associate at Sadler's Wells, through recommendation of Alistair Spalding, who advised me to watch his work. And I'm curious, not coming from the company, not growing from how we work, how was your experience working with the JV2 student?
It was full circle. In that, I mean, upon arriving, we were kind of testing the kind of footing between each other, kind of trying to suss each other out because, like Jasmin, you just said, there's a lot of you really push the dancers to kind of have input and creative kind of power in the work, and I wanted to challenge them by trying to first create a kind of language, a dialogue, a kind of way of moving between us. And then we could start shaping the story, which was really tough for them at first because it almost seemed pointless in what we were doing. And they almost felt like they were, in the military because we're helping build strength around the kind of words or the language we're trying to build. We all felt a bit nervous because we're like, where's this going to go? Where's this going to go? Because I didn't reveal to them what the work was at first because of, I just kind of wanted to gauge a sense of where they were physically and also introduce myself in the way I move. So yeah, the first kind of few days were a bit testy. And then once they kind of understood why we were doing this and they saw the kind of progression and they saw that the way I was trying to open their eyes to moving and was now becoming more clear and becoming more stronger. That's when I started introducing kind of creative scenic ideas. And then the kind of story was much easier to write when we knew the words we were using and the letters. The whole point of this was to open them to maybe styles and ways of moving that they've never really used. And all of them took it on board. I'm telling you, it went past my expectations, the kind of bond we formed. And when one person was down, the whole group picked them up, and that's something that can be rare in some companies that are so large, that everybody knows everybody. And I think they took a real appreciation that nobody was ever left out. Nobody was there were no favorites or nothing. It really felt like a community, and that's kudos to you and Sabina's work. When I got there, I was like, wow, this is a group. There's unity in here. And in the first few days, it almost felt too big. We had to keep reminding ourselves that, hey, the stages and theaters we're performing in won't have this much depth because, they just outgrow the space they were in. And yeah.
And the problem of our space, because it's massive, the students
massive. Yeah.
Like that's what they will have in the stage, and it's bigger than Sadler stage.
Yeah, it's much bigger. But yeah, it was really also. So some part of me was aware that I was here outside of the kind of JV2 family, the Jasmin Vardimon family, and thank you so much for having me there, and thank you to Alistair for recommending me. It was great to kind of be in a space where I really felt privileged to be there because, being the first choreographer outside of that circle. There was a part of me that was aware of that, but that wasn't something to be afraid of. It was something to kind of be happy about and to kind of, to take on and be blessed by. And I made that clear to the dancers that, hey, this might be a little bit different. And that's fine. That's great because you're all going into the big bad world, as we call it, and you're going to deal with people of all kinds of different personalities and ways of moving. So yeah, it was epic. So kind of when you watch the work, you think, oh my God, the rehearsals must have been so dark and sad. But really, there was a lot of joy because there was the shackles and chains of this pain were getting removed because we're expressing the things that had hurt us. And through that, they felt alleviated. And it was actually really a fun playful environment and kind of finding ways to kind of represent these things in the most clear and the most sometimes sensitive and sometimes the most insensitive way. So it was really a pleasure, which is something that, you know, people associate really serious and really chaotic work with the really serious and chaotic work process. But really, it was great. It was a lot of fun. So yeah.
I think they had a lot of fun and they grew a lot from it. And it's one of the reasons why I want to have different people is that they have different experiences, because it's true. Every choreographer have a different process, and it's important to adapt yourself. And part of what we work with them mainly is about being versatile and adaptive and being able to respond to different creative inspiration and different creative triggers. One of the things that are very important for me is empowering young artists. And I twice that I came to rehearsal, I saw that you have young artists with you, that you bring with you to rehearsals and work with them to deliver your work. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so I was working with my lovely company dancers, which is Sekri Diaby, thank you so much, and Monique Humphreys. They are part of the collective and the work we produce. And part of bringing them in is really important when you go into a new group. And I am demonstrating a phrase or a way of moving. The human eye wants to kind of replicate that sometimes and think that's the only way to do the kind of task I'm asking. So having other young people who are on equal footing with the dancers and the company as well, and they're like, yeah, we're in the same place and stage as you. This is the way we've taken on his kind of instructions. And then they realize, wow, there's a million ways to do it, and you don't have to have a multitude of experience, age, whatever. It doesn't matter. And my way of doing my creative task isn't the only way to do it. There's a million ways.
Absolutely. It's all about interpretation.
It is.
It's great to realize, and collaboration. And one of the things that's so nice with JV2 is that they create, and obviously not always they have young choreographer, but sometimes they have a choreographer who just started to work as a choreographer, even though they've been dancers for many years working with them. And we also commission a young light designer who just graduates and young costume designer who just graduates. So there is kind of a team of artists that work in the same level of development and the same level of their kind of stage of where they are in life, just starting professional path, which is great because new collaboration come out from it always.
And, you know, in the world of art, it's really important to build these kind of relationships because, you know, a friend who's doing a job can be like, oh, I actually know this guy. I worked with him before, get in contact with him. So building these, relationships and collaborating with these young designers and young lighting designers is really, really essential. And, you know, the people I was working with, kudos to them. They were amazing. The costumes they had drawn up and what they had already produced was just phenomenal. It was actually quite frightening with the kind of mask they built, the mask that we're seeing today. It was like, whoa, what was going on? But yeah, I think it's really important because for people who are young or about to graduate or have graduated, they feel that they have to work with people who've been established for a long time to kind of feel like they're doing real work. And they don't realize that there's opportunities and inspiration all around the people that they've been working with or in the same kind of place in their career. So yeah, building that kind of trust through JV2, like, hey, look, he's a young choreographer working with a young designer, a young costume designer, lighting designer, and still producing great work is something important for people to see. And then they realize they don't have to go for the biggest lighting designer out there to feel like their work is good. So yeah, it's encouraging those collaborations at an early stage because those are the people you probably work with for the rest of your career. So yeah, it's important, which is great.
So just one last question. I'm interested to know how current situation affected you, both with Black Lives Matter, but also with staying active and creative during lockdown.
So. Yeah. I'll start with the lockdown. It was, at first it was just like blow after blow, and it was really quite hard, because all the things that you were trying to cement were just crumbling. The kind of future almost seemed bleak, like, there's no way out of this. So the first kind of weeks were really tough, but also really necessary to just stop and to rejuvenate the body and to relax and to refuel and to rethink the things that you find important and the ways you want to go forward. It's been mad because I realized that in my work I was kind of building these cages for the kind of anger and helplessness I felt. I was kind of using my work as a kind of cage to hold this pain. And now that all my family and friends kind of understand the work I was making, the kind of impact I was trying to have in the world, is very exposing, and it feels like these cages are opening and these wounds are being opened, and it's fragile but vital time. I feel intimidated by it. I feel scared at times, but I also feel invigorated that it feels like real change is really happening, not just mental change, but reforms are being made in laws, and actionable change is happening, and that's really encouraging. But I've also felt like I haven't been able to speak as freely and openly as I usually do, because I've just been listening. The people that I thought didn't want to speak or didn't want to say anything about it are finally speaking. And I feel it's my duty to just sit back and absorb, because I've done a lot of talking and a lot of shouting about it. It's time for me to kind of sit back and see what's happening, and also educate myself a lot more on the steps that have been taken that have led to this point. So doing a lot of reading and a lot of kind of talking with my brother. He's very, very well read, and we have deep conversations about this, because injustices in the world are kind of what our work's about. Regardless of whatever issue is going on, we try and fight for equality. With women, whether it's for people's rights, whether it's for equality in race. It's just felt like fighting and fighting and fighting. And now that I feel like people are fighting everywhere with us, I can almost not take a break, but I don't have to shoulder that weight and pain, as everyone around me can feel it. And it's been an immense.
Yeah, I mean, as horrible as the event was, the fact that it's waking up people and make people aware is so important.
Yes.
And always been, but it seems like those things get so easily forgotten and so easily kind of like passed by. Any discrimination and inequality that's been repeated again and again. Hopefully a change will come now. It seems like there is a movement for a change and a wish to change. And I'm curious, what do you think about the industry that we're working in? How that could be?
It's really the industry is very on the, if we're on a ladder kind of structure, at the like mid to lower tier, it all seems very well balanced, and there's many people of different countries and different continents all mixing and making together. But there's a real issue once you get to the higher part of the middle and the higher tier, that the people holding the real creative power and the ability to commission and produce work, a lot just white male British, or this kind of, you can kind of feel that you're out of place. As soon as I'm in the studio, I'm like, wow, I'm with someone for Taiwan, I'm with someone from, Singapore, I'm with someone from America, someone from Spain, someone who's half British and Ivory Coast. I'm with my brother from Zimbabwe, my partner from Australia. It feels amazing, the industry. The working environment where we produce work is really great. And these boundaries almost don't exist. So it's really quite perplexing for the people who are making and performing dance when their eyes have now been opened that, hey, this is actually, there's a lot of inequality. It was hard for a lot of the people in my industry to understand that because they're like, what are you talking about? In the studio, we're all mixing and there's everyone from all kinds of different backgrounds. And when you start to tell them that, yeah, but as you go up the ladder and you realize the people who are really, pushing the gears and kind of steering the wheel of what's happening is that there's not a lot of equality. So it's kind of, it's kind of like a masquerade. They're blinding us to believe that, it's all fair and equal, but it's only fair and equal here where we're working. It's fine. But yeah, you can feel that, I can feel in our industry that people are a bit shaken. And that's good, when the system gets shaken a little bit, people question the footing they're under.
Yeah.
Then we have to restabilize and find ways to make things a bit more firmer. But we'll see. We'll see. I've had a lot of meetings with some organizations which I've worked with, so I know that they're definitely for representing people of different races and colors and cultures. But just because they are for representing that, they need people who on the board or people on the will hold the power to also have a voice to help represent that better. And it's opened up bigger conversations, not just in race, but conversations within racial discrimination. There's also subcategories of discrimination. So that's been, it's just been an explosion of information to kind of take in. And yeah, I feel sad that it's taken such a momentous event to kind of kickstart this kind of awareness. But at the same time, I'm also glad that people are aware. So it's this bittersweet feeling. And yeah, I'm filled with hope and energy to keep going. Yeah, it's still very tough for me because these wounds still feel very fresh and new. But yeah, it's good. It's good.
It's created a very important awareness, and which hope will make actions that the first stage always for change is awareness. So, Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have created a very powerful and very, very relevant work, which I truly hope we will be able to present on stage in the future. Yes, but for now, we are sharing a few clips from the rehearsal of Eterna by Anthony Matsena.
Enjoy.